Yeah, so yesterday morning I wrote Michael and I said, we have a problem. I said, seems like I have laryngitis for the first time in my life. And so I've been on every kind of herb and traditional cough syrup and everything else. And Justin just gave me something I sprayed in my mouth, and then he gave me something. My entire mouth is numb right now. So I can't feel my tongue. I'm not joking. But by the end of the last service, I almost didn't have a voice. So please pray that I'll make it through this. And I'm supposed to speak again tonight. But it is a privilege to be here with you all. We always enjoy seeing Mountain View, and now you're in this new building, and we're so thankful for you guys and happy for you guys with that. Pray the Lord will increase your numbers and your knowledge in Him. Before we start, I always like to read Acts chapter 14. At the end of Acts chapter 14, a lot of times we just read these books and we pass right over a lot of amazing stuff in them. But what we're doing this morning is just carrying on something that was started almost 2,000 years ago with Paul and Barnabas. And I know Paul and I know Barnabas. But the church at Antioch had sent them out on their first missionary journey. And if you look at verse 26, they had finished up there. It says, from there they sailed to Antioch, in which they had been commended to the grace of God for the work that they had accomplished. When they had arrived and they gathered the church together, they began to report all things that God had done with them, and how He had opened a door of faith to the Gentiles. And there they spent a long time with the disciples. And so that's what we're doing this morning. We're continuing on with that as the Church of Jesus Christ. And these days we just have all the cool technology and everything else. We can show you pictures and videos. I even watched our church service in Kenya this morning live, and so we're so fortunate to have that. But normally what we do is we share a video, just like the last time we were here, and then afterwards I will share some pictures and explain some other things that you might not understand in the video. And I have to be honest with you, we've been so busy the past 3.5 years since the last time that we were home as a family. You know, most people's lives in March of 2020 kind of locked down. Everybody went on shutdown. They were locked in their houses. They couldn't go out. We were scared to death for a while. Over in Kenya, our life got 10 times busier in March of 2020 last year, and we have not slowed down since. In fact, I have to be honest, I did not even make the video you're about to watch. I said, Sarah, my oldest daughter, I don't have time to do this. Can you put something together for us? And she so graciously put together the video you're about to see. And then once we got to the States, I started trying to find pictures to even show what has been happening. And I said, oh my goodness, once watching the video, put pictures and looking through the past 3.5 years, I said it's almost like the video is just the last year of our life. And so there is so much more that is going on in Sekenani, Kenya. For many of you, if you don't know, we're in Masai Mara. We're at the front gate to the reserve. So we have all the animals. We deal with all the issues with that. All the things you like to see, we think that's like a rat to us, okay? Yeah, elephants are like big rats. But anyway, with that said, I'll share the video and then share after about some of the pictures, as well as Laura and Sarah.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other. Jesus, the only one you could ever see. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for holy. There is no one like you. There is none before.
That's the video. That's not in there, and so much more to say, but I'm going to try to give you guys just a sense of what's going on over there. I put this picture in here not because of me, but because of the man that's standing with me, and his name is Dominic Laporte. And Dominic started working for us several years ago when we started the school, just as a school secretary. And all those years have kind of taken him under my wing, and he's grown up in the Lord, in the scriptures, and good teaching, to the point now where he is literally managing the mission station. Even right now, as we speak, I talk to them every morning, and everything that you just saw and much more, he is actually having to deal with and taking that upon himself. It's really funny to hear him every morning, so pray for him. But without him, it would be very hard to do what we do. I preach and teach in Swahili, the national language, and he translates everything into Maasai in church, Mara Bible, everything that we do. Dominic has been such a faithful man, and we're so blessed to have him. So like I said, before Corona, in March of 2020, our church had about 250 people in it, and we were shut down for a couple months. And once opening back up, we had, oh, that's got sound. But anyway, our church now has over 400 people in attendance every Sunday. So the Lord has really grown His church over there. I tried to get a shot of that just to show what was going on in there, but there's people outside the windows, there's people in the foyer, and since we've left, school has started back, and there's actually 90 more boarders that are in there somewhere, and our church is 30 by 40, a 30 by 40 building. So if you take and split down the middle of this, I think that's about the size of our church, and we have probably 350 inside. So over there, there's no personal space, as you can imagine, in church. So I like to tell the stories of some of the believers, because that's the reason we're there. Everything you see in the video, the good things, the helpful things we do, everything is very carefully calculated as to how it will help us share the gospel with people and be able to teach people God's Word. But these three ladies here, the one on the left is Mama Megan, the one on the right is Mama Sidonique, and the woman in the middle is named Mama David. The two ladies on the end are co-wives. And so I always joke with pastors and say, imagine having that in your church where you have two women or the wives of one man, and they're not even all the wives that he has. But the Lord did save these ladies. And I like to tell the story of the lady in the middle, Mama David. When we first got to Kenya 15 years ago, she was the town witch doctor. And I remember one time, one of the ladies in our church, her son had passed away. And so I had the unfortunate privilege, I guess, of going and telling her that her son went on to be with the Lord. And when I told her, she just kind of lost it on the ground, started screaming. I didn't know what was happening. It was new to me. I just got there. All the women started running from the village. We had 40 or 50 women running up to her. And this lady was standing over her, straddled over her, yelling in her face, "Where is your God now? Where is your God now?" Shortly after that, we buried a little baby in a blanket in an 18-inch deep hole. And the mom was in our church, so we were there with them. And this lady was slapping her on the back of the head because she was crying. In the Maasai culture, you don't cry. And then the Lord saved her. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The Lord saved all three of these women. And so it was a beautiful picture of God's salvation to the worst of us, because really we're all pretty bad. And within a year of this picture, I buried all three of them. So it was amazing, the Lord's timing in His salvation. Also, I had the privilege, it's always a privilege for any father, when you get to baptize your own children. And Sarah and Summer was able, and in Kenya, you got to understand, it's not just church, it's an event. And so you have 700 people show up when there's a baptism and when there's anything going on. And so Sarah and Summer were able to stand in front of all of these people and share the gospel and give the testimony of how He had saved them, as well as many other people that day. In the video, you saw new believers. And as I was going through the pictures, looking at all the pictures, there were actually about 26 believers, new believers that the Lord drew to Himself. over the past 3.5 years, we've baptized about 20 of them right now. 6 are waiting. They're in the baptism class, waiting to be baptized. This lady here, her name is Gogo or Shosho, which means grandmother in Maasai and Kiswahili. And they had called me. I'm the grave digger in our community as well. And they had called me and said, Shosho is about to die. We need you to come and dig her grave. And I said, is she dead? I'm not going to come dig somebody's grave while they're sitting there watching me. No, she's not dead yet, but she's going to die very soon. And I said, well, I'm not digging the grave until that happens. So Sarah and Laura had spent the last year with her, caring for her in her house, bringing her food. Sarah spent hours a day with her, sharing the gospel with her, who Jesus is. And one day she says, I want to be saved. And so the Lord saved her, and she was immobile. And the last thing she said is, I want to be baptized. And I said, okay, how do we make this happen? So I brought the Kubota tractor down with the bucket on the front of it. The mamas heated up some water, and we poured it in the bucket, and we baptized Coco there in the backhoe, in the front loader bucket, with hundreds of people around as she shared about how the Lord had saved her. And the amazing thing about this whole story is that after this, she lived for another year. Sarah was able to, she even got some of her health back, and Sarah was able to carry her on the four-wheeler to church every Sunday. And then she did die about a year after this. But it was amazing to see how the Lord gave her that extra time. This old man here, I talk about him every time we're here. His name's Mosaic Q. He is a really dear friend of mine. I share the gospel with him many times, often, and he is still not a believer. I share this picture to say, please pray for his salvation. He's 103 years old and still going, amazingly so. But he has 4 wives, over 80 children. His youngest wife is 27 years old. We got 27-year-olds in here. Yeah, you would be his last wife. And he has a 5-year-old child. I don't know if that's an Abraham story or what. But he's a walking history book. He is quite amazing. We take care of him on the mission. He's there. We feed him twice a day now. If he coughs, we take him to the clinic. His wife says he doesn't even eat at home anymore. And we're like, that's okay. So the Lord is, for some reason, prolonging his life, and we hope it's to save him. And he comes to church every Sunday and sits right there and sleeps through the whole sermon. He's 103. What do you say? You know? But he is something else. I don't wear a collar. I'm not a gown guy or anything. I put this picture in there to show that during the last few years, they asked me to be a reverend of the African Inland Church. And the reason I agreed to that is that it gives me the opportunity to be able to bury people legally and to marry people legally in that country. And so it was just another opportunity to be able to reach more people in that way. This is Mara Bible Institute. And Mara Bible Institute has been just so wonderful. It's been the last 3.5 years since we've been back. And it's just trying to teach solid biblical teaching and doctrine, because there is so little of it, to be honest with you, everywhere, not just in Africa, but in America as well. And we just seem to export our bad teaching to third world countries. It's so terrible. But anyway, Mara Bible Institute, the African Inland Church has found out about it, that I'm teaching it, and they want to accredit it and start sending us pastors from their churches. It's supposed to be 1.5 to 2 years. We've actually not finished the first go at it. We're 3.5 years into it, but Corona kind of messed that up a little bit. When I left, we had 16 students in Mara Bible. And once again, there's Dominic, just so faithful. My principal comes to this because my principal leads the school, and we want this in our school, which I'll talk about in a minute. But Mara Bible Institute has just been so good. It's 2 days a week, 2 hours each day, 4 hours a week of solid biblical teaching. And hopefully, Lord willing, our first class will graduate 6 to 8 months after we get back. Don't hold me to that. But yes, we'll try to. Also, during the pandemic, or whatever you want to call it, we had our 2-month lockdown where we were forced to shut down. And really, Funny story right now is we're actually only allowed to have a third of our capacity in church, which would only be about 62 people for us. And so I tell the media people, whatever you do, don't turn the cameras around because I don't want to go to jail right yet because it is so full. But we would have people write us from church, and those who had devices that they could watch something online, they would say, please, we're starving, Travis. Can you do something for us? And so Dominic and myself and the media guy would go to church, and we put our sermons online, and we started doing devotionals daily. And it's Kweli Ministry, which means truly, truly in Swahili. It's translated truly, truly. And it has exploded into so much more than I ever imagined it would. And we're reaching almost 15,000 people with good, solid biblical teaching. And Mara Bible Institute's on there now. And I'm constantly battling with atheists and Muslims and Buddhists. This last guy, it almost sounded like I was in a comic book story with some weird Buddhist. It was really crazy. But it's amazing. We had a lady from Iraq write us and say the Lord has blessed her so much to be able to find this online that she can hear in her language. I don't know what she's doing in Iraq, but it's reaching so many people. People are wanting to come, they're wanting to join the Institute, they're wanting to do different things in our church. So we'll see where the Lord takes it, but it's amazing how the Lord has used that so far. Let's see. There we go. Oh, and now I'll invite Laura up to say a few things. Maybe I won't lose my voice completely again.
Good morning, church. Good morning. I'm very happy to be here today to share about what Jesus Christ is doing in Masai Mara, Kenya. But before I share, I'd like to thank you for your prayers and support of me when I was very sick with malaria and pneumonia in the hospital. I know that you guys gave a very big donation to help with the medical bill, and I'm just very touched and very thankful. So thank you for that. I get the joy and privilege of teaching the women and children in our community and the church. I have 2 women's Bible studies throughout the week where we go through different scriptures, book by book, and we just finished Colossians, which was a real blessing. I also get to teach Sunday school. I share that responsibility with other ladies in our church. And I share the responsibility with my daughter Sarah. We teach girls club at our school. So we're always looking for opportunities to share the word, to share about Jesus Christ with people. I also try to get God's word in everyone's hands. So we're able to get Bibles, hard copies of Bibles, give them to people. I'm also able to give audio Bibles because the majority of the older ladies cannot read. They're illiterate. So we're able to give audio Bibles. And I have one friend, Nangashu, who just loves the Word so much that she's constantly listening to it, carrying it around, listening to the Bible. You can hear her coming because you hear the Word of God. So now I call her Nino, which is the Word, and so she loves that. But she seriously has the Word memorized, which is a real challenge to me to be listening to it so much. My other daughter, Summer, has a ministry to widows in our community where she goes and gives food to some widows there and shares the gospel with them. One specific widow is quite old and she's blind and partially deaf, and Summer sits there with her and listens to the word of God with her so that she can hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. Thank you so much. My name is Sarah. I'm the firstborn of Travis and Laura. I'm coming here to talk to you guys a little bit about the Snack Shack. And the Snack Shack is on the mission, and it was built in 2020, and it was meant for the school. And it has things like ice cream in it, and french fries, and sodas, and it's really fun. And we built it for the school kids, for them to come and have a place to learn about new things like ice cream and stuff. And then 2020 came around and Corona hit and there was no school, so we didn't have any school kids. And we were like, what are we going to do with the Snack Shack? And it actually ended up being a huge door to share the gospel because we had so many youth from our town come to the Snack Shack. They started coming to eat ice cream and we played basketball there on the mission, and we started opening all these relationships we had. It was just really cool. And
A lot of them had struggled with drugs and alcohol, and they kept saying that when they came to the mission that it was a safe place and that they could be safe there. So through the Snack Shack and getting to know a lot of people, we started youth group. Like you can see in this picture, this is our youth group right now. We meet on Saturdays and we listen to sermons and we talk about things and we try to help each other out with each other's struggles. And I'd like to tell one story. On your guys' left, on the ground, the guy is sitting down in the red shirt. His name is Kim, and he was one of the worst alcoholics that would come to the mission to hang out and play. And he was high or drunk. A lot of times he'd come. And over time, he just stopped coming. For about 4 or 5 months, we never saw him. Then about 4 months ago, he came back to the Snack Shack and asked to talk. I said, sure, and he was like, you know, Sarah, the mission has stolen all my friends, because they were all there. And he was like, I think I need Jesus. And I was like, well, we can agree on that one. So he is here now, and he's doing good, and he's really growing. So that's what I'm saying.
Yes, we get to watch, they're 7 hours ahead of us in Kenya, so we get to watch the services before we go anywhere, normally on Sunday mornings. And even this morning I was telling Laura, I said, look up there, in a church of over 400 people, we have youth that are basically running the place. I mean, up here, you know, we have, how old was he, 13? 13-year-old that's playing the piano that's in school. And so it's really neat to see how the Lord has brought these young people up through that year of just nothing. And then they, like she said, they meet together, and when they have tough questions, they come and we say it and we show them in the scriptures these things. And so Snack Shack's been really amazing. Oh, this is the school, Mara Christian Academy. It's another ministry we have there. We started in 2015, and this past year they did their first national exam. In Kenya, they do an 8th grade national exam. It's so much pressure on these kids. It's nationally televised when the results come out. And it's really crazy because either you go on with life or you're finished. And a lot of kids commit suicide at this 8th grade level. It's so terrible. And our kids, all 20 of them, literally blew it out of the water. We were so surprised that they did so well. And it's given us, I mean, it's just sent the name of our school, shockwaves, out through the country of Kenya. This is the 8th grade class that did so well. They've all put their money together themselves and had these clothes sewn for us in the center over there, and we had a big party together. It was so much fun, but they did so amazing. When I left, we had 204 children in our school, and I flew out on a Monday, and school started back on that Monday. And it's so crazy because right now we have 305 children and a 100-child waiting list trying to get into our school right now. And politicians, Congress people, governors, people are trying to get into our school. It's really crazy because we're doing things that nobody else is doing. And this is some of those things. We had parents on closing day. All the parents was there in the church. And I put what you're seeing up on our board. And I said, guys, we're doing something that nobody else is doing. We're offering these life skills. And to be frank with you, life skills is something that's missing. It seems like all the youth these days, they're losing how to do things, practical. Even here, I'm sorry to say. So we have the capability now to start investing practically in these children. The guy there on the left, his name is Isaac. He's worked for me for 12 years. When he came, he didn't know how to do anything. And now, after teaching him how to weld, teaching him how to build, now he is teaching our children how to weld. You saw the video of the kids welding? Those are 7th graders welding. My 2 youngest can weld now because they joined in to this. And so my life is actually very easy. I'm just kidding. It's become very easy in the manual labor these days. Now I deal with more issue labor stuff. And so, but these guys, so what we have basically is we have 5 or 6 different stations on the mission station, and we have 5 or 6 kids only in 7th grade. And each 5 or 6 kids stay in that station for a week after school during the evening, and they learn these skills. And once they're done, they rotate to the next station. But it's welding, it's cooking, excuse me, and it's boys and girls that do everything, even electrical. So each kid has one of these boards, and at the end of the week, they got to be able to wire it up, got to be able to plug it in at the end of the week, and their lights got to come on, your outlets got to work, all of the practical stuff that these kids need. And during that parents' meeting, there was about 100 people in there, 100 guys, and I said, so guys, and these Maasai guys are so arrogant, I can't even explain it to you. I said, so if you have a problem in your house with your electrical outlet, just get your little girl to fix it. They didn't laugh like you just did. But I think that's what sent it out, because everybody's like, oh, my kid's learning how to do electrical. You don't hear this anywhere in the entire country. Also, they're doing sewing. And to be honest, when we put these in, these kids were so uncoordinated with their, it's the old style where you do it with your feet, but by the end of the week, they were sewing even little pockets and little bags and things like that. So this is one of my favorite pictures. Most of us that grew up, especially in the mountains, we know how to plug a tire. I grew up that way. But over there, unheard of. And so this was the favorite picture that I threw up, because this little girl was plugging a four-wheeler tire there. And so the parents just love it. And so everybody's trying to get in. The reason we only do 7th grade is because 8th graders, we've hired an IT man, and he is teaching them the Microsoft Office packages, Word and PowerPoint. And so by 8th grade, they've got certificates even in computer. So, Mara Children's Home. When we were here 3.5 years ago, we only had 8 girls, and now we have 29 girls in Mara Children's Home. Such an amazing ministry, not only saving these kids out of these terrible situations, but being able to be their parents, to be honest with you, and love them as a godly father and a godly mother, and teach them the scriptures and watch them come up to be amazing godly children. And all of them have their story, and none of their stories is more terrible than the other. So as I was going through the pictures, I just picked a few for no different reason. It's just because they were kind of the first one. But this one's our little 3-year-old. She's now 4, but her name's Njoki. And we actually found her, and I can't go into a whole lot, but it involved her father. And it was a terrible situation at 3 years old. She went to court a week after we left, and we have a social worker now that we've hired for the mission. We have 76 employees, workers, staff that are on the mission these days. It's a pretty big operation. So she took her to court, and she was so afraid of the officers in uniform that are all over the court because of the situation that happened. And she's 4 years old, imagine. And so the judge made all of the officers leave the courtroom, and this little girl got up on the stand, and testified against her own father, and just did amazing. But she is a special little fireball, is what we'll call her. I guess she's a fireball. She's not shy like the other kids. She doesn't hide her face, and so just so special. But she's like the life of the children's home. This girl's called Jane, and we found her after a medical trip. We had medical people come out from the States, and we always go out. And we were packing up from one of the places about 30 minutes in front of us, and this mom comes running up as we're packing stuff in the car to leave and says, can you please take my daughter, help my daughter, she's getting married. And I said, well, when did she get married? She said about 6 or 7 months. And I said, well, 6 or 7 months, because I'm looking at the kid, and she's in 3rd grade, and I kind of know she's not ready to be married yet. She's only 9, and they married at 10 and 11. And I said, but we got our eye on her, and when the time comes, we'll contact you. And she said, well, could you help my other girl? And I said, well, where is she? She said, she's being taken now. And so it was Jane. And we said, yes, that's the one we want. Please bring her. And so we brought Jane. And then that's Jane just the other day, grown into a beautiful young lady. She helps me sing in church. She is the happy person of the children's home. But right after we left, she went to high school. And so she was the first one to graduate from class 8 or 8th grade from our home. And I show you this picture to say that Jane, right now, would be the 2nd or 3rd wife of a very old man, and she would have 3 children by now. And so once again, doing what kids should do. You know, being happy, playing, going to school, learning. This here is Muntet. Muntet, this is the day that she was brought to us. She is 10 years old in this picture. Is that right? 10 years? 10 years old in this picture. And she had found out that her dad was going to circumcise her and marry her to an old man at 10 years old. So she ran away from home, and that's about 45 minutes in the town behind us. And she ran into the conservancy. The conservancy is where all the animals are. And she stayed overnight in the conservancy by herself, just with what you see. And a tourist vehicle the next morning driving by saw her, got her, and brought her to us. And so we said, absolutely, we'll help her. That's her just the other day. Just a wonderful, doing what kids should do, and being loved, not being an object. So this is a picture of the clinic. I'm not even sure why we put this picture in here. There's so much we could say about it, but it's once again such an amazing ministry that we get to be involved with. We finished building this shortly after I got back last year, and it's really nice if you see inside it. I mean, I tried to make it very first world, because loving my neighbor means I want them to have the opportunities that I have. I want their children to have the education my children have, the health care that I would get. And so we've tried to do this, but it's given us so many opportunities to share the gospel with people, to sit with hurting people. We lost our first little person just a few months ago after 2.5 years, and just to sit there with the mom as she was grieving. But people come, they're sick. And so we get to meet people, get to be with people. We've been nationally televised twice. We've been on 14 radio stations over there, as well as the school, as well as the children's home. And so everybody from all over knows about our clinic. We have people from all over. We have people from Nairobi. We have politicians that will call me and say, hey, can I? Yes, come. And so they come. And so we also have an x-ray machine. And I share this picture because when our radiologist isn't there, they turn to me, who knows nothing about anything like that, okay? And so I go in and I get to take x-rays when our radiologist is gone. And this was a little person, 3 or 4 years old, came in, had a pain right here for days. And that's a metal roofing washer that he had swallowed. And so I just thought it was cool, because I took the x-ray and was able to find that. I had one guy, I don't know what the state commissioner of North Carolina would be like, but like our commissioner of the state, he showed up one day and our radiologist was gone. I mean, he's like on par with the governor, and he needed an x-ray, so they called me and I was like, lay down, and he complied. He don't know I don't know what I'm doing, but it worked. It worked out. And it's really funny that I get to do stuff like that. And even people will come into the clinic and they'll say, after meeting with the doctor, they'll say, we want to talk to Travis. And so I go in and I sit down and I say, so what's the problem? And the doctor will say everything. And I'll be like, okay, sounds right to me. In their mind. So, if you need to be treated, I can help you out. 2020, we really saw the providence of the Lord in March of 2020, because well before we had ever heard of what COVID or Corona is, we had planned on being back in the States in March of 2020 for a furlough. And we were teeter-totting back and forth once we heard about Corona, and then boom, the country locked down. And I've had many leaders, many chiefs come to us and say, Travis, as I've told this story, if you left, there would have been hundreds, if not thousands of people would have died from starvation. And so it was an amazing undertaking. So many people have given, even from here. I never thought it would be what it was, but in the end of 7 months, we did this for 7 months. We were feeding Monday and Friday, and we were feeding 700 families on Monday, 700 families on Friday, and every family had an average of 8 people per household. And so we were feeding 10,000 people a week over there for 7 months. And I always tell people, I can't say it was me and Laura doing this. We had tons of help from our children, all 4 of them. And they were amazing. They were just amazing troopers through the whole thing. We don't get snow days in Kenya from school. We get feeding people and pouring concrete days. That's what my kids get. You want to pour concrete today? No school? Yes. That's what we did. But it was an amazing time. That's what my shop looked like every Sunday night. The kids would come down and work all week, dividing. Each one of my kids had a team from the children's home, girls, and they'd come and they'd pour beans and they'd get cabbages and they'd pack these bags. It was so much work. This is we weren't just doing it in our home area. People found out we were feeding people, and they were coming from all over, and people were starving, and this and that. So we would try to go out in different villages. This was a children's home that was 3 hours from us that we found out they had no food, and so we took them food, was able to see the kids, get to know them, play with them. But that was like a crew in my shop. That's just a crew of my kids in the children's home, and they packed all this stuff up. So I have to give them credit for making this happen. It was my kids, just so you know. What's happening now is the Haven, and the Haven is basically we can no longer, or it's illegal, I should say, to have children 18 and above in your children's home, is what we found out. And that's what the children's officer told us. And we said, so what does that mean? Just for example, 3 days before we left to come home here, we had a little girl show up that was brought to us by the children's office. She was married when she was 12 years old, and she was rescued by the police, but she was only in 2nd grade. They put her in another children's home somewhere, and that children's home didn't school her. So now we have a 14-year-old that's in 2nd grade. So she would be in 6th grade, and I'm supposed to return her to these terrible people who tried to sell her or marry her off or whatever it is. So I was talking to him, and I said, what's that mean when they're 18? He said, when they're 18, we don't care, whatever. So I said, if I can build something, we don't care if they're 18 years old. And I said, okay. So I started trying to get money to raise, to build this, and we did, thank the Lord. And it's the Haven, which there will be 16 girls that will be downstairs in this, that will move from our children's home when they're 18. And we have many that are in 7th grade, 8th grade, that are 17 years old. They will move into the Haven, and a lot of the kids will, our staff, female staff, will stay on the 2nd story of this for the mission. And the children's home, many people don't know, in Tanzania and in Kenya, children's homes have become illegal to have. And they did a study in Tanzania a few years ago, and the reason they did this is they said more criminals are coming out of children's homes than anywhere else. And so because they phase out. And I said, well, we don't do the whole phasing out thing. We're with these kids to whatever is next in their life. If that's marriage from a good husband, if that's college, if that's a job, whatever it is, we're with them until the end. And the government, believe it or not, actually like Mara Children's Home. We're a registered children's home. I read the letter from the principal secretary. It said all children's homes are to be shut down. They're illegal, but they've allowed us to have ours. So it's actually pretty amazing. Future needs, as you can imagine, yes, we have 400 people in a 30-before church. So we are going to try to build a church, a bigger church in the future. That will hold about 600 people in that sanctuary. And I hope that's big enough, but maybe it's not. Maybe it will not be big enough. We put some Sunday school rooms and things in there. And on the end of that, we have what's called the safe place. And you heard Sarah talk about all of these youth were saying the mission was their safe place. And so we're going to try to build a youth center on the end of the church that will give these youth a place to come away from the prostitutes, away from the alcohol and the drugs in our center, and give them a place to come and hear about the Lord, and we taught the scriptures. And they can bead and do all their bead work and play the games here. So that's in the works as well. The main thing that's it's kind of a very important time restriction here, and I'm not used to being under time restrictions, is the high school. It's actually junior and high school. The whole curriculum in Kenya is changing, which is a good thing because we will no longer have this pressure on all these poor kids. But it's changing to a CBC-based curriculum, competency-based curriculum. It's already started being implemented. We have it all the way from kindergarten to 5th grade right now, even in our school. So the old one is working its way out. The new one is coming in. In January of 2023, we will have a 8th grade in our school. We won't have a 7th grade in our school because they will be going to what's going to be called junior secondary. And out of the 46 schools in our zone alone, we counted there was over 800 5th graders right now. And nobody else in the whole area is planning on building a junior secondary school. So we're going to have 800 kids that have no place to go. They're going to be going hours and hours away, and their parents are going to have to pay a lot of money over there. So we're going to try, when we get back in December, Lord willing, to start. We have a year to get a set. We don't have to build all of that in a year, but we got to have a 7th grade and an office, because it's a completely different administration, principals, all that stuff. We're already training some of our people that's in our current school to be able to move to the secondary school, the high school. So pray for that, but that is pretty much going to be my next year after the Haven hopefully will be done in March. And there is so much more, honestly, that is going on. I could stand here for days, probably wouldn't have a voice, but there's so much going on over there. This is kind of just trying to show what's been happening. Honestly, it's so busy. It's so awesome to be a part of it. I tell people all the time, because it is the Lord that is doing it. You guys would understand, but I tell people all the time, I'm just a little old redneck from Robbinsville, North Carolina. I mean, there's nothing great probably happening through me. This has to be the Lord that is doing all of these things. And so we are thankful to be a part of all that's going on. And thank you guys so much for your prayers, for your support. I talked to Michael and Justin, and I'm sure they keep you up to date. But thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, I guess you can ask outside, and I'll try to answer them if I have a voice. But we also have prayer cards. Please take one of us, one of the children's home. You can pray for them. The names are on the back. So thank you guys.